And let me shift gears on you here for a second, because in addition to talking about disinformation, we talk about a close relative, which is censorship. Usually, the way to amplify your so-called fake news is to censor any truth tellers. And you're a librarian, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, especially this close to Banned Books Week. I think there's been a lot of coverage, rightfully so, about this conservative movement to get rid of certain books, certain schools. I think Governor DeSantis in Florida really amplified his um, profile. Well, not amplified it enough to compete in a primary, but amplified enough to get some national attention on banned books. But this has been a long-standing problem. It didn't start with conservatives recently, right? Can you talk a little bit about just how common is banned books, even outside of those well-known examples?
It is unfortunately all too common. I mean, this is an issue that has been, as you said, it's not new, but it seems to have really escalated like early pandemic because a lot of these reactionary parent groups that were anti-vax and anti-masking, they, the same kind of billionaire funding that got Trump into office, that's behind a lot of these AI technologies and behind the hype, found these parent groups, seeded money to them, and helped turn them into a mass movement. Actually, I hesitate to call them a mass movement because they're sort of what you refer to as like grass top. They're getting significant capital from these major conservative organizations, and that enables them to make it look like they're a real grassroots movement, but it's just that they have money, and so they're able to go and show up in every community. And they peddle in a lot of misinformation and lies, in particular the lie that librarians and teachers are like seeding sexual content to their children or giving them pornography, when actually what's happening is that libraries and schools, like the rest of the world, are materials, are books and films and other materials, audiobooks, have become much more reflective of the world that we live in. And that is to say that like books for queer kids, books depicting the transgender experience, like positively and validly, books that are written by Black authors. There's just much more diversity in literature than there used to be. And these reactionary groups are furious about it. And so what they have been doing is enacting this localized movement backed by billionaire funding, reflexively opposing any kind of diverse materials and showing up in these communities to take control. So a lot of times it shows up in the form of banning specific titles, but it also shows up as members of these groups trying to take over local office. So the most local levels of office, like the library board or the school board. So like they're organized in a way that they see when those positions come up, or they use their influence in other ways, and they're able to join those boards. Now, a lot of times they lose, but one of the things that's really frightening about this group, this movement, is that failure is not a deterrent for them, and they have so much money flowing towards them. Now we see that this movement that was fairly, sort of localized and regional, happening in all parts of the country, but was certainly not like a federal mandate, is now that, like we have folks from Moms for Liberty who are in Trump's administration. And so it is a really serious problem. And I think that there is a relationship between what we're talking about with AI and the environment of material censorship that's happening in our local communities, because the AI tools, like I said, they're being financed by the same billionaire money that is financing these kinds of small reactionary groups. And they have a sort of similar agenda. It's like they want to homogenize what our information resources are. They don't want it to reflect the full breadth of human experience. They want it to be something that like matches their own agenda. And you see that the Trump administration has really embraced the use of AI, and a lot of these reactionary figures have also really embraced it, and because they see it as a way to make their worldview dominate, without them having to do a whole lot of work.
Well said. So